You can feel it, can't you? They praise you, they chase you, and they seem obsessed with your success. But deep down, you know something is off. You're being celebrated for a version of yourself that does not actually exist. It feels flattering at first to be seen as the hero, the provider, or the unbreakable man. But eventually, you realize you're just playing a lead role in someone else's movie. They haven't fallen for you. They have fallen for a projection of their own unmet needs. Being placed on a pedestal is not an act of love. It is an act of isolation. If you are tired of performing just to be accepted, this analysis is for you. Welcome to the reality of the fantasy trap. In the next 15 minutes, we will dismantle the illusion of being adored for the wrong reasons. For a man who has spent decades building his life, his career, and his character, there is nothing more insulting than being loved for a mask. We see this often with successful men who finally reach a point of stability. You become a target for people who are looking for a savior, not a partner. They don't want to know your fears or your midnight doubts. They want the security of your presence and the prestige of your name. This is called idealization, and it is the fastest way to feel completely alone while standing next to someone. Let us break down the 6 undeniable signs that you are being loved as a fantasy, not a human being. The first sign is that they fall for you fast, but they never go deep. You have barely had a real conversation, yet they are already calling you their soulmate. They tell you that you are perfect and everything they have ever wanted. To a man who has been through the grind, this should be a red flag, not a compliment. According to psychologists, this is a projection of their own internal void. They aren't seeing you clearly. They are seeing a lighthouse that they hope will guide them out of their own storm. Studies on attachment styles show that people with anxious tendencies often move with intense speed. They crave the safety you represent, but they don't have the tools to build a grounded connection. When someone calls you perfect too soon, they are effectively telling you that you aren't allowed to be flawed. They are in love with the idea of a man who has no cracks. But real intimacy is found in the cracks. If they fall in love with the polished surface, they will eventually resent the messy reality underneath. True connection takes time, patience, and a willingness to see the unpolished parts. Anything built faster than a foundation can support is destined to collapse. The second sign is that they admire the suit, but they don't know the man inside. They notice your energy, your status, and your social standing. They love how you look in a room full of people, but they never ask about the thoughts that keep you awake at 2 in the morning. They are tuned into your presentation, not your true self. This is what we call surface level validation. It is a dynamic fueled by infatuation rather than authentic intimacy. You might find yourself filtering your truths just to keep the admiration alive. You smile more, you speak less, and you hide your exhaustion. You do this because you sense that showing your real, tired self might ruin the image they have fallen for. It is an exhausting way to live. Being admired from a distance is a spectator sport. Being understood is a collaborative journey. If they are only clapping for your highlights, they aren't your teammate. They are just a fan in the front row of your life. And fans leave the stadium when the game gets difficult. The third sign is that they praise you for traits that are actually convenient for them. They tell you how much they love that you are so easygoing. They admire that you are low maintenance and never demand much. At first, this feels like a compliment to your maturity. But look closer at the language being used. Praising a man for being low maintenance is often just a way of saying, I like that you don't have needs that inconvenience me. It sounds like praise, but it functions as pressure. It creates a silent contract where you are rewarded for being agreeable and punished for being human. When you stop being effortless, you will notice a shift in their affection. The moment you need reassurance, or the moment you set a hard boundary, the love begins to fade. This is the cost of being placed on a pedestal. You are only valuable as long as you stay up there and look pretty, but a pedestal is a very narrow place to stand. Eventually, you will either fall off or lose your soul trying to maintain the balance. Real love does not demand that you be convenient. It demands that you be honest. If they only love the version of you that is easy to manage, they don't love you at all. The fourth sign is that you find yourself hiding your needs to remain lovable. This is the silent death of your autonomy. You want to be honest about what hurts or what you need from the relationship, but something holds you back. You sense that the moment you become too real, you will shatter the fantasy they have created. So you shrink yourself. You smooth over your rough edges and smile through the discomfort. This is what psychologists call conditional acceptance. You learn very quickly that their affection is tied to your performance. Dr. Gabor Mate often speaks about how we trade authenticity for attachment. As children, we do it to survive. As grown men, we do it because we are afraid of being alone. But hiding your needs to keep a relationship is not love. It is survival. And you cannot build a life on a foundation of survival. You become a stranger to yourself just to remain a hero to them. If you have to abandon yourself to be loved by another, the price is too high. A man who loses his voice in his own home is a man in a prison of his own making. The fifth sign is that you feel adored but completely misunderstood. This is perhaps the loneliest experience a man can have. On the outside, everything looks like a success story. They are giving you attention, they are complimenting you, and they say all the right things. But on the inside, there is a hollow ache. Being adored is about the other person's feelings. Being understood is about your reality. You are receiving attention, but you are not receiving attunement. They love the highlight reel, the shiny surface, the finished product. But who is loving the parts of you that are still under construction? Who is loving the past pain and the messy, complicated truths of your journey? If they only want the crown, they don't deserve the man wearing it. Real connection begins when you feel safe enough to be known, not just praised. In a fantasy relationship, you're admired from a distance like a statue in a museum. You're surrounded by people, but you are still completely alone. You are being watched, but you are not being seen. True intimacy is the end of the performance. It is the moment you realize you don't have to be a legend to be worthy of a seat at the table. The sixth sign is that the moment you grow or change, they pull away. Healing and growth are the natural enemies of a fantasy. Maybe you start speaking up for yourself more often. Maybe you start setting boundaries around your time and your energy. Suddenly, you aren't as easy to define or as easy to manage. And that is when the shift happens. They become less affectionate and less invested in the relationship. They fell for the version of you that stayed quiet and agreeable. But growth changes your voice, and healing changes your frequency. When someone falls for a fantasy, they aren't prepared for your evolution. They want you to stay frozen in the frame they built for you. Psychologically, your growth threatens their sense of security. If they rely on an idealized image of you to feel stable, your reality will feel like an attack. But your growth is not a failure on your part. It is a sign that you are outgrowing the cage that someone else mistook for a connection. Those who love the role you play will never understand the person you are becoming. And that is okay. You are not here to be a permanent exhibit in someone else's gallery. You are here to live a full, evolving, and authentic life. So, how do we break the cycle of the fantasy trap? It starts with a brutal commitment to the truth. You must stop rewarding people for loving the mask. If you notice someone is idealizing you, you must intentionally show them your flaws. Not to be toxic, but to be honest. Test the relationship with your humanity. Be honest about your tiredness, your mistakes, and your boundaries. The people who are looking for a fantasy will run away when the truth comes out. Let them run. Your goal is not to be loved by everyone. It is to be understood by the right person. A man's greatest asset is his integrity, and that includes the integrity of his relationships. Real connection is not about being a hero. It is about being a partner. It is about two people seeing each other's light and shadow and deciding to build something real anyway. You don't need to perform to be worthy of love. You have spent years working, building, and providing. You have earned the right to be a human being. Do not let anyone turn you into a project or a trophy. The right person won't fall in love with a fantasy of you. They will fall in love with your full, beautiful story, the victories and the scars alike. Wait for the kind of love that can meet you exactly where you are, without a script. You have played enough roles in your life. It is time to just be yourself. And it is time to find someone who actually likes that person. Connection is not about the distance from which you are admired. It is about the depth at which you are known. Choose depth over distance every single time. Your peace of mind and your future depend on it. The fantasy trap is a comfortable prison, but it is still a prison. It is time to walk out of the role and into the light. Because the real you is far more interesting than the version they built in their head. And the real you is the only one capable of finding real love. Thank you for listening to this truth. May you find the courage to be seen for who you truly are. The performance is over. Now, the real life begins. Our journey through the mechanics of the fantasy trap reveals a harsh but necessary truth about modern relationships. Validation that comes only when you are perfect is not validation. It is a contract that you never signed but are expected to fulfill every single day. When you look into the eyes of the person you are with, ask yourself if they see the man who worked for 15 hours today. Ask if they see the man who worries about the future of his family or the legacy he leaves behind. If all they see is the bank account or the social status, you're not in a partnership. You are in a transaction. The most successful men are often the most vulnerable to this kind of exploitation because you have built so much. You assume people love you for the building, but you are not the building. You are the architect, and the architect needs to be loved even when the building is under repair. Do not be afraid to show your cracks. A man who is afraid of his own flaws will always be a slave to the expectations of others. But a man who owns his imperfections is truly free. That freedom is what will eventually attract the right kind of connection. The kind that doesn't need you to be a statue on a pedestal. The kind that wants to walk beside you on the ground. It is time to reclaim your narrative. It is time to stop being an idea and start being a human. Because at the end of the day, you deserve to be known. You deserve to be seen. And you deserve to be loved for the real, messy, beautiful truth of who you are. The illusion has served its purpose, but it is time for it to fade. Let the mask fall away. Let the real story begin. Thank you for being here today. Stay strong, stay authentic, and stay real. The world doesn't need more heroes. It needs more men who are brave enough to be themselves. Goodbye for now.